I was in high school and there was a picture of an oil-covered bird dead on the beach in Santa Barbara. This would have been in 1970. And I started reading about all of the various insults to the environment that were taking place at that time, from oil spills to air pollution to DDT and so on. And, I just had this generally kind of dark and dismal view of the future. There was the threat of nuclear destruction, and then on top of this, there was this, sort of continuous sense that the technological world was overwhelming the natural world and destroying it. And, I was doing a lot of art and writing on these subjects at the time. This was in high school. I even wrote a play, which we put on in our little theater arts program called The Extinction Syndrome, which was about how the human race is basically destroying itself. And so, these themes are not new themes for me. They go back, 40 years before Avatar. I had always wanted to go to the Amazon. It's the last great bastion of nature. It's so vast and so biodiverse and so rich, even in its present state where it's being whittled away. And 20% of it has been destroyed, another 20% of it has been degraded. That 60% that's relatively untouched is still one of the great phenomena of planet Earth, and so important to the health of the planet and so on. So I'd known for years, sooner or later, I was going to go there. But the specific proximal reason that I went down there was that I got invited to speak at a sustainability conference in Manaus. And Manaus is a city, big industrial city, but it's right in the heart of the rainforest, which has attracted all these big industries. So you have this big city sitting in the middle of an enormous rainforest that stretches for hundreds of miles in all directions. It's quite an amazing place. I had recently met Tosa Sultani, who's the head of Amazon Watch, and I called her up and said, look, I'm doing this thing down there. Do you want to be my advisor and just consult with me on this? And she brought stacks of books. She gave me so much homework. Okay, here are the issues. This is what's going on with the indigenous. This is what's going on with the rainforest. Start cutting them down, tens of thousands of hectares a year, and the rate is accelerating. What happens is they either burn it to just get it out of the way, or sometimes it's being destroyed in the form of these big hydroelectric dam reservoirs.
Fórum Internacional de Sustentabilidade. Tenho o prazer de apresentar James Cameron.
So I went in, and my remarks at the conference were about that and about this hydroelectric dam, the Belo Monte Dam, which to me became this almost symbol of the collision of rapidly growing, economically growing industrial society with its needs for more and more power, and the primeval, untouched world of the rainforest. Because the Belo Monte Dam was going to be built right smack in the middle of the rainforest, where it would displace 25,000 people. And the government would pay them off, but some pittance, to move, destroy their lives, take them from their hunting grounds, take their children away from any connection to their traditional lives that they had had, so that they could make power. Because the Brazilian people took a look at that and said, yeah, this makes sense, we need the power. Because, down here in Rio de Janeiro or Sao Paulo, when we need the power, our society needs the power. When in fact the majority of the power is not going to them. See, it's going to the national grid, but the majority of the power is going directly to a lot of big extractive industries right in the region where the power is being generated. Aluminum smelters require enormous amounts of power, thousands of megawatts of power to make aluminum. Of course, where does the aluminum go? The aluminum goes all over the world so that we can make cars that we drive for a couple years and trade in. Or so that we can drink sodas and throw away the cans and not properly recycle them, and so we constantly need new aluminum. So it's wrong on just about every level. It's even wrong on a technical level. So the problem with the Belo Monte Dam is that because of the seasonality of the river, in order for it to produce at its rated capacity of 11,000 megawatts, it will need other dams upstream. There's certainly one that's already been proposed, and that again opens the door for others. It'll be a domino effect which could take out the entire Xingu Basin. eventually. They're going to try to tune up this river and make it something that just has a continuous flow throughout the year. And Altamira, which is the nearest town, is going to get partially flooded, and 20,000 people in Altamira are going to be displaced. And that's not including the indigenous people down in the Volta Grande region. As somebody who understands engineering and is passionate about renewable energy, I look at that and I see all that energy that could be harvested without having to build a dam. There are better answers. You've got solar, you've got wind, you've got efficiency, you've got smart grid. There are a number of alternate solutions that would cost less. You could put in-stream turbines in these rivers, in the Rio Negro, in the Amazon, in the Xingu. You could generate so much power. They should be investing in this technology. I implore the Brazilian government and President Lula to reconsider this project. Now that I had asked President Lula of Brazil to reconsider the Belo Monte Dam project, I thought, if I'm going to talk about this intelligently, I need to go down there. I need to go down to the Xingu, to what they call the Volta Grande region, which is this big bend in the river where the dam is meant to be built. And I need to talk to the people directly that are going to be affected. And the Amazon Watch people said, well, there's a meeting that's going to be taking place down there about the dam. And leaders are going to be coming in from all over the Xingu Basin by boat for a meeting of indigenous leaders. This is not for press, this is not for government, this is their sort of planning meeting. So we kind of didn't know what was going to happen. We got a boat, and my wife Susie and I we went down the river. We went past the site where the dam was going to be built. And of course, it's just rainforest at this point. There's no indication there of any project under construction yet.
Here's the place that they are planning to build the big dam, the main dam.
And then the next day, they went into their big meeting, and we were excluded from that initially. So we took the opportunity to go with the chief of that tribe, a guy named Zacarlos Arara. And Zacarlos was a young guy, mid-20s, but he was the chief of the village. And he took us on a little guided tour through the rainforest, showed us things that I'm sure our urbanized eyes would never have seen. Their little agricultural area where they'd cleared some land and they were growing their crops. And then we went back, and the meeting was still in progress. There were 25 leaders, and a lot of these leaders were young guys, 19, 20 years old. They're asked to take responsibility at a very early age in their culture.
Vamos fazer uma apresentação.
And then there were some of the older, more established leaders. And, at that point, they sort of figured out that we were serious and we were there to be helpful if we could be. So they let us in. They let us into that meeting. And the way it works is that when one has spoken and sits down, somebody else will stand up. And they will be there all day, if it takes, to hear what everybody has to say. And everyone's got their moment to speak. And they're expected to speak. And so we got to listen to what all these leaders said. And of course it was heartbreaking. Here were people whose lives were going to be altered irrevocably, whose communities were going to be destroyed, whose homelands were going to be destroyed, literally put underwater, or affected negatively as the river's flow would change. It would back up upstream, it would be reduced downstream significantly. For these people in that place, it's the end of their world as they know it. And they're reacting accordingly. They are there with their spears and their bows and arrows saying that they will fight.
Colocar no papel.
So we go all the way around the council circle and everybody speaks, and then there's this moment where nothing's happening. And there was a dawning realization that I was supposed to get up and talk. So, I got up and spoke. I'm very humbled to stand here with such strong leaders that I see around me.
Eu sinto grande humildade de estar no presente de grandes lideranças como vocês.
And it was very interesting because there was a group of Xikrin Kayapo there, and they were very colorful, very feathered headdresses and full paint head to foot, and very traditional weapons. And they don't speak even Portuguese; they only speak Kayapo. So it was a three-way translation now, from Kayapo to Portuguese, Portuguese to English, and the other way. So I had to speak very slowly so that everything could get communicated, through the chain. And the first thing I said was that when people want to understand each other, they can, no matter what it takes in terms of translation. And when people don't want to hear each other, they won't, even if they all speak the same language. And the government isn't listening to you, you know. So we need to find a way for your voice to be heard by the public, because the public will influence the government's actions.
And I will pass on what I've heard here today.
You know, I said a few things like this. I praised them for their leadership, for their courage, you know, for their willingness to work together, because these are tribes that have traditionally been in competition with each other.
You have your traditional wisdom. You know how to live in this world. You have the fish in the river. The river gives life. You have the forest. You have a wealth that my world does not understand.
And I told the story of the snake, you know, which was just a metaphor. And I said, of course, you know, as hunters, you know how the snake kills. You know how it doesn't crush its prey. It just slowly tightens every time the prey breathes out, until pretty soon the animal can't breathe in anymore, and it dies of suffocation, and then the snake eats it. And that's what the civilized world is doing to your natural world, your rainforest and your rivers. And then their leader starts to speak. And it comes back through the translation from Kayapo to Portuguese, from Portuguese to English. And what he said was, "We have a lot of breath." So that was an amazing moment, and it was kind of an interesting bond that was formed there.
He wants to give you his crown.
And, you know, we made a commitment that day to do what we could to help, to raise consciousness about this issue.
Invited and hosted by this Kaipo village and a lot of the other tribes, and it's been a great honor and a great education for me, because you can't visit here and see all of these huge families living off the river, fishing from the river, sustained by the river, and not be appalled, frankly, because this area that's being really ignored in this whole process of moving toward building this dam, not only the Belamonte Dam, but in fact Brazil has a plan for 60 dams all over the Amazon, and I think we all want to do whatever we can to help get the message out about these dams, because it's terrible to sacrifice these people, this river, and this country's riches and the rainforest, which you see behind me, for a little electricity. It's not even efficient.
Until you're here, you don't really understand. You have a culture that has lived here for thousands of years. We slept in hammocks side by side, 10 hammocks in a row, and woke up at about 5 o'clock to a beautiful morning song that the women were singing. And it teared me up in the morning. It was one of the most incredible things that I've ever experienced, just being here and being able to be embraced by this culture. And it's very interesting, the parallel of what's going on here with what went on in our movie, you know. And it's one of the reasons that Jim got so passionate and involved in this.
Really, pretty much right at the inception of Avatar, it was going to be an environmentally themed film. And I was thinking I was making a kind of a historical comment, if you will, on what had happened in North America in recent history, but 100 years ago, 130, 150 years ago, and back through the whole colonial period. And I wound up going to Brazil, and all of a sudden I was living in Avatar.
This is our land!
I've been asked to be here to help them raise this voice, raise this cry about what's happening here, and to be a part of this very, very important moment and this very important battle.
Cima para baixo, o entendimento desses que é de morte, como se uma bomba a destruir a nossa região, a matar a nossa vida, como eles têm feito todo o tempo. Nosso sofrimento, o povo Chipaia, Curuaia, Juruno, Naraueté, Surimi, Paracanã, Chicangueapó, que vivem nessa região. São pessoas, gente. Eu quero que o mundo saiba disso, que o mundo divulgue isso.
So we fought the battle. The battle was public. It did create a lot of dialogue around it, which hadn't been happening. So I think we did good, but what it means is the battle's ongoing, and there are still many moves to be made.
Their plea to the world is not being heard. So this is an opportunity, for me to take the success of Avatar and I think the goodwill that's been created around the world.
What you have to do is you have to stay committed. You don't have to be hopeful. You just have to stay committed.
When people are sitting on shit that you want, they're making your enemy. Then you're justified in taking it.
I know enough about how human systems work and how governments work, but I have to be hopeful. It's my duty to be hopeful as a parent of 5 kids that we still have time to fix this, and we still have time to make it better. But really what's needed here is the human race needs to wake up and look forward with a sense that we've got to change the way we live. And I'm not saying we have to, abandon the cities and go, strip off all our clothes and try to run out into the forest and live like the Kayapo. That's not going to work, and the Kayapo don't want us there. Plus, we wouldn't know how to do it. We've severed the connection to the ancient knowledge that's necessary to do that. And we don't have to do that. What we have to do is we have to transform ourselves yet again into something that's never existed on this planet before, which is a kind of techno-indigenous people. We have all our technology. We'll use high technology and science to provide us with the energy that we need. But there'll be sustainable solutions.
It's that fast?
Nature is not our enemy, it's our sustenance, and we need it. And we need nature healthy for us to be healthy and to survive long term. And that's the realization we have to come to, and that's the next stage of evolution that we have to reach.